We are on a mission to save and revitalize independent pharmacy.
On the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast, you'll get actionable business advice.
Hear stories from industry leaders.
And share a laugh or two with us.
Fuel your passion for pharmacy.
One conversation at a time.
4,
3,
2,
1. Ignition.
Welcome to the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Key, president of PioneerRx, and today I'm here with my co-host, Marsha.
Hi, I'm Marsha Bivins, the director of marketing for PioneerRx. Today, our guest, I'm super excited about this, is Kelley Babcock. She is the founder of Leadership Growth Formula. Kelley, welcome.
How are you guys?
We're doing great. How are you?
Oh my goodness,
I was
wonderful.
I don't remember when I was just wondering what you were doing. It wasn't too long before you reached out. I think I must have sent you a mental message.
You did. It was that telepathic message that I got.
I was like, I miss Kelley on stage at PDS.
I've been following you social media, and it's like more of your stuff has been popping up and what you're doing and you're traveling.
It's called retargeting.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Geofencing and retargeting.
Yes.
That is so funny, Jeff. That's kind of how my life works. It's just, my partner, Terry Norvell, and I, we call them cookies from the universe because it just, that's how it works. And it's just amazing. And I love it when that happens because when I reached out to you and then you immediately responded and I was like, oh, well, hello, of course, we're meant to connect.
That's right.
It had to be, the last time we saw each other had to be 2020?
PDS 2020, yeah.
Yep.
Is Peacock's a bit much?
No, I like
not
it.
at all.
I like it. My grandmother had peacocks growing up.
Oh my gosh, really? Where did you grow up?
I grew up mostly here in Louisiana. She lived in Spring Hill, Louisiana, which is a little farming community kind of northwest of where I grew up. And they had a farm and a peacock.
Love it.
It was noisy.
It's funny how talking about cookies from the universe. It's probably been about 8 or 9 years ago that I was gifted this really beautiful. Actually, it's right there up on the top shelf, that peacock box. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, after that, lo and behold, every time I turn around, it was peacocks, and I even have a pillow. This is so funny, stand out, be colorful, move boldly, bring joy to others. I'm like, oh, well, okay, there you go.
That's Kelley. That's your mantra.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got the colorful. I've got the orange on
Yes,
today.
you sure do. What color orange is that though?
I don't know. It's the orange glad color.
It's bright orange.
Orange glad. If it's University of Tennessee Go Volunteers orange, I'm all in.
Told you.
I got you.
Just kidding. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to play with you guys today.
So you live in Florida?
I do. I live in Boynton Beach, Florida, which is just south of West Palm Beach.
Okay.
Still in Palm Beach County. Mm-hmm. And I am, believe it or not, I can't go back any further than this, but we might. I am a 6th generation Floridian.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? Crazy. My grandmother and my great grandmother, both of their first names were Florida. Who does that?
Wow.
I know. So we pioneered on both sides. Interestingly enough, on both sides, my mom and dad, my ancestors pioneered the state of Florida. So my Florida roots are deep.
Deep.
Very.
Okay, and you married your high school sweetheart?
I did. We just celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary on Saturday.
Oh, congrats.
Well, thank you. Apart because he has COVID. So he's fine. He's great. I mean, he, just a little congestion. And so I sent him packing because I said I have a podcast,
Yes, you'll probably hear me kind of clearing
social
my
distance.
throat a lot because I had COVID 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So,
well, I know. I actually had it in January, and it took me 3 weeks to test negative.
oh, wow.
really, yeah, set me back. And I, double vaxxed, boosted,
Yep.
and a flu shot for the very first time in my life. So I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, it can get you. How are you feeling now, Marsha? You good? You all right?
It's just clearing my throat. It's just a lot of
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
just a lot of that. And yesterday it was very frustrating being in a lot of catch-up meetings from being gone for 2 weeks. And just trying to get through these meetings, and it just got to the point that my throat was dry, and there was a lot of me clearing my throat, and I was just like, God, this is gonna be it's gonna just kill me today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh, honey.
there's
Well,
a lot of
yeah,
people suffering from far worse than.
Well, exactly. I mean, I really counted my blessings. I was like, you know what, this is all good. And I'm flying to Denver next week to deliver a leadership growth formula session. So I was like, yeah, dude, I am not getting this again.
Yeah.
Not again, right? Like, surely my antibodies are powerful.
up. Yeah.
They're up and good.
Yeah, they say if you're the triple vaxxed and you get it, that you have like this super immunity for a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm counting on that. We just got back from New York, and if you were going to get COVID, that would be a place.
Oh yeah,
that would be it.
Yeah, I forget how compact everybody was, and everybody's revenge traveling. Lots and lots of people from other countries, and
It's
just
crazy,
yeah. I felt like our
everything
hotel was
just
full of
packed.
French and Italian.
Yeah, I hardly ever heard somebody speak. I heard one guy heard me talking. He's like, "Oh, where are y'all from?" And he was from Houston. But besides that, everybody was
From somewhere else.
from overseas. For a while, it was hard to get in the United States. I think.
I know. I think you're right. And I hadn't heard it called revenge traveling. So I'm gonna steal that, because it's what it is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
Right.
is.
I mean, when I flew to Richmond, Virginia, 10 days ago, and there were truly, and this was on the sign, 15 parking spaces left in the entirety of the Fort Lauderdale International Airport parking garage.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. And so that's exactly what's happening.
Huh.
Revenge travel.
15. Well, and that's an international. And I wonder how many people are going overseas too.
I mean, we're going to Spain in September.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of during the end of the pandemic, some of the other countries are hard to get into. So a lot of people were doing domestic travel. People who normally go to Mexico were going to Florida or something. And so you're seeing a lot of travel that normally U.S. travel that got kind of spread out, got kind of compressed in the United States. A lot of people went to Hawaii that normally would have gone to Aruba or something like that.
We're scheduled to go to Mexico in September, and that's it for the international travel. So for me anyway, we'll keep our fingers
I think
crossed
we
that
have
happens.
Spain in September and then London in October.
Yeah, we'll see.
So
Good.
We'll see. Hopefully.
fingers crossed.
Oh, they said I
Fingers
just saw
crossed,
something
yes.
today that the pandemic, this resurge in New York has peaked.
Oh, wow.
So that's a good sign.
That is a good sign. Absolutely, Jeff. Well, we're all going to put that positive mojo out there.
That's right. That we're peaking. All right. So we have 2 kids. What do our kids do?
Oh my goodness. So I know they're adults. I guess they're my kids.
Yep.
Yeah. Our son is 34 and he lives and works in Denver. That's where we actually raised our children. We actually left South Florida, and they were probably 5 and 7 at the time. And so he just considers himself a Coloradan. I'll have to blast him out of there. He, loves the Denver area. And our daughter actually is engaged. She actually lives like 4 miles from me, and she is a VP, a project manager at a private home builder here in South Florida. Just,
Nice.
moving and grooving. And she and her fiance are, looks like the date is September 22nd, 2023. So I have a while.
Yeah.
First
That's
day
a
of
long
fall.
engagement.
First
Yes,
day,
I
that would be
asked
the
her-
first day of
well,
fall.
Exactly. And I said, they've been together for 7 years. So I said, why are you waiting so long? And she said, oh, hello, I'm opening $1 billion property and I got a lot to do this year.
I'm busy.
So I said, oh, well,
I'll plan the wedding after I finish the project.
I know. I said, well, I guess, your priorities are,
Yeah. Just got to
clear
pencil
on
in.
that.
We're going to do this.
We're going to do this. But
Yeah, I wonder-
after my project.
I wonder if that's typical. I wonder if the girls' children tend to stay closer to their parents and the boys tend to go further away. Like my daughter lives in Dallas. She works
Not
for
this
me.
one.
And well, that's true. Opposite for you.
Opposite
And then my
for me.
son
You
is
live-
in Arkansas. So maybe
My-
that's not.
Yeah.
My parents are 6 hours west of here, and my brother is
Wow.
still there close by. And
Close by.
although they're working on retiring and moving closer up here.
Oh,
So that
wow.
dynamics will change then.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But not
But
on
I
your
wonder
side.
what that statistic, that would be an interesting statistic to discover, right, Jeff? I mean, it would be, I don't know. You know, she actually moved here. She worked in Colorado for a year after she graduated from college. She went to CU in Boulder. And I think, you know, but here's the other thing. She's my March baby. So she's a Pisces, and I think she just loves the water.
Oh,
And, you know, our son just loves that, you know, he loves the
the
mountains
hiking
and
in the
you
mountains.
know,
Yeah.
the outdoor stuff out there in Colorado. So
Huh.
I know.
Is she a scuba
And-
diver?
No, she's not. She isn't, and that's kind of interesting, but no.
Your son's in Denver, and you're going to Denver next week. Are you going to extend your trip and see him and spend some time?
I am.
Is he married?
He is not. He and his girlfriend just built a house together, so they've been in a long-term relationship. We used to sit around the dinner table and have this little mantra, this little chant when they were growing up, you know, like no credit card debt and don't get married till you're 26. Well, they took that so literally. I mean, it's like he's 34 and my daughter's 32. So I said, okay, anytime now, you know, you didn't have to, you know, you blew by 26.
Don't take that
kiddos.
so seriously.
Don't
okay?
take that so
it's
literally,
time
right?
to-
But yes, to answer your question, I'm flying in on Saturday, and then Terry Norvell, my leadership growth formula partner, and we will kick off our session on Wednesday. So I'll have a nice chance to visit and see old friends, you know, our old neighbors, and that's always great. That's always nice.
Nice.
Yeah, it's interesting how the generations is changing. I saw an interesting statistic just yesterday. I think this will be the first year that China's population will not grow.
Wow.
So if you look at, you know, Kelley, you and I are, well, all of us kind of growing up, you know, you saw these predictions of overpopulation of the earth and
right.
Soylent Green, you know, we're going to be eating each other and this kind of stuff. And now you look at it, they're predicting, I think by 50 or some year that China's population will be half of what it is today. Because people
That's
aren't,
amazing, isn't it?
you know, people just aren't, you know, as economies mature, the priority is to have children.
Well, and for the longest time, they were only allowed to have one child, right?
Right. Well,
that's what I was just going to say.
And that disproportionately affected the number of women because people preferred male babies. But even at that, they allow 3 kids now, and there's incentives. And once women start working, they're afraid it's going to affect their career. They don't want to do this. They're just not interested in having children. And it's probably long term. It's probably good for the planet. Short term, it'll be bad for a few young generations supporting a retired group and not enough workers and this kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you look at how really there is an entire industry that I think is where the innovation and the explosion is going to come from, and that's typically, you know, when you think about. I was just reading a book called The Longevity Economy by Dr. Joe Coughlin, and he runs the Age Lab at MIT. And it's amazing that now that the baby boomers are retiring, there's this entire population of people, you know, that are coming up that are going to demand products and services be different, right? Like different types of products, different types of services. It's just I think it's a new frontier for all of us to be thinking about and exploring, you know, how do we serve that population? Because what we do know, and these are some fun facts from, you know, I took we'll get into that too in a little bit, I'm sure. But in 2021, I took an 8-week course through the Modern Elder Academy. Fascinating on how to transitioning during midlife. Amazing information that the lifespan now, we are predicted to live 35 years longer, right? And not only that, but this actually comes from not Joe Coughlin, but Dr. Mike Roizen. He's the chief wellness officer at the Cleveland Clinic. I mean, this guy looks like he drank from the fountain of youth. I mean, I thought he was my age, and it turns out he's like 74 or 76 years old.
Wow.
And I was just stunned. But he is, he's the author of a book called The Great Age Reboot, and they're developing an app around the Great Age Reboot. And his studies indicate, now this is just mind blowing to me. I don't know about you, but that in 10 years, so by 2032, 90 will be the new 40. 90 will be the new 40.
I
Wow.
could see it because, I mean, already 40 is the new 20?
Right. And the
Says
longevity.
the 40-year-old.
Yes, says the 40-year-old.
Says a 40-year-old.
I don't feel
and
40. I feel 20.
No, you'll never feel 40, Marsha. Absolutely. That's the hope, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is that we maintain, if we're going to live that long, because I said, look, hey, me and Betty White, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm going to live that long, I want to be vital. I want to have the vitality and the energy and
The spunkiness.
yes, right,
Mhm.
exactly, right. I want to be dancing. I want to be dancing right on into the right on into the grave. But yeah, so I think as the population, and I'm fascinated by how that age group of the baby boomers are going to start dictating in a different way, right?
Mhm.
Like skilled nursing and assisted living and life plan communities are going to look, the shape of those are going to look a lot different than they do today. It's my
Yeah.
prediction.
Well, I mean, like, Jeff, you were just telling me, like, last week, there's a quote that you read or somebody said that was, take your food like it's medicine, or you'll end up taking medicine like it's food.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was Steve
Yep.
Jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but
No, it's an interesting
It's
tangent.
fun fact.
It's true today. It's
Yeah, no,
take care of yourself
I look
or-
I look at my mom who's 82. I'm getting along fine. You know, she's active and
Oh yeah.
and I think about my great grandfather when he was that age and in a wheelchair, you know, and just a big difference in
Yeah, actually, I was talking to my grandmother about that yesterday. She's in her early 80s. She's 82, 83.
yeah, she's around great.
And she gets around fine, and she's not on any blood pressure or heart medication or anything like that.
Yeah.
And she was talking about, if I remember getting like if I remember my mom, and if I get like my mom, don't let me stay here, put me in a home. And I'm like, I was like, your mom passed away when I was a toddler. I think you're doing much better than your mom right now.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to get to see her first great grandchild graduate high school.
Wow. Isn't that
Next year.
amazing? I mean,
So-
that's so incredible. What a gift, right? Well, and that's the thing. I think that, as we look at that, I know I went to the doctor, this has been years ago. My parents were probably 82, 83 years old.
Mhm.
And I happened to go with them to a doctor's visit, and they asked for the list of medications. And I said, well, they're not on any.
Mm-hmm.
I think my mom was taking some eye drops for glaucoma or something, but that was the only prescription she had. And they were like, no, really, like what? And I said, no, they're not on any medication, and which is phenomenal. So I was like, wow.
Other
Yeah,
than just daily
good.
supplements.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yep.
Well, I remember I was
Yes.
Bob Lomanak and I were talking years ago, and I remember him mentioning the leadership class that you did at PDS, and he was really pumped about it. Hey, it's a really good thing for you to do. We kind of brushed it off at that point because I think it was a PDS only thing. Although I did think we got permission that said we could go and never. I don't think it ever worked out. I don't remember when that was. But so you left PDS and now you have your own company, right? And
Yes,
so
sir.
tell us about that.
Yeah. So I'll give you just a little bit of the backstory, because I love Bob, as you know, and he's so funny. He said, Kelley, I've tried to tell people a little bit about that program, but it just defies explanation. So I just tell them, look, you got to trust me. You just have to go. And so I said, well, the good news is you got a lot of credibility, Bob. And I think there were a couple of elements that created that sentiment around the advanced leadership program. And I'll give you a little bit, just a quick snippet of the history, because when I arrived at PDS, in the role of chief operating officer, because, here's what's funny is that I don't think many people know. I mean, I had an entire career before I actually came to pharmacy development services. And so when I came to PDS, I came on board as one of the business coaches. And then 18 months later, in September, October of 2010, stepped into the chief operating officer role. And one of the things that the president founder, Dan Benamos, had wanted to do was to create a training curriculum specific to pharmacy owners and their teams. And I said, well, what is the one thing? And that had been my background, of course, in my previous career, training and operations heavy. And so I said, what's the one gap, if you could say sort of the universal pain point for independent pharmacy owners, what would that be? He didn't miss a beat. In a nanosecond, he said leadership. And I said, well, you're in luck because I can build that. So we offered the very first advanced leadership program, I want to say it was like 2012 maybe. And then in 2013, we redesigned it. Sharon Rasnick, who's still with Pharmacy Development Services, Terry Norvell, and myself, and because part of my background, I'm a bit of a unicorn. I used to say, well, I'm just a generalist because I was in training and operations and I could just kind of, get her done and all kinds of, implementer, you name it. But my passion and my true love really is in facilitating and training. And part of that, of course, is instructional design. And so I said, yeah, I can build that. I was very confident about that. Dan probably was not so confident at the time. But we actually, the three of us co-created what exists still to this day is the Advanced Leadership Program for pharmacy owners and teams. And I would say probably by this year, I know when I left at the end of January last year, which was 2021, I bet we'd already put through over 1,000 pharmacy owners and their team members. Yeah. And it really became sort of the cornerstone, the flagship program. Ironically, it's not all that specific to pharmacy. It's specific to leadership, right? And I think that, part of that bit of that unicorn is because I had been in roles and positions my entire adult career in managing and leading high performance teams and being accountable and responsible over and over again for performance and results. I think that that's probably part of the secret sauce of that program is that it was very applicable. Right. I kind of come to the table with this pragmatism. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a lifelong student. I read all the time. And yet I'm also, if you don't tell me what I'm going to do with this or how I'm going to use it, then I'm not interested. You're right. My enthusiasm begins to wane proportionately because I want to know that I can actually use this. I want to do something with it, so to speak. So I think that was part of it, right? Is that we were able to provide these tools and resources that oftentimes these folks had never even heard of.
Right. Yeah. Just not exposed to.
No, not exposed. You hit the nail on the head, Jeff. No exposure.
Yeah.
I think the other secret sauce is that we based it in neuroscience. So it was based in neuroscience and how the brain works. Not a deep dive into the science of it, but enough that we become really super aware, that self-awareness of how we show up and our behavior and how our brains are operating so that we can actually make a choice to do things differently, right? I mean, hey, if what we're doing and how we're showing up is netting phenomenal results, great. But if they're not, and we've got some of that dissonance or that, discord or disconnect going on, then we've got to be able to step back and say, okay, what do I need to change here? Or what do I need to do differently? So I think that was, and then the third piece of the secret sauce around that program, in my estimation, was the connection, right? The absolute opportunity to get out of your own environment and into a positive, supportive, and respectful place where you were with like-minded people, right?
Like similar industry. Yep.
Exactly.
Similar challenges.
Yeah, we've got the same pain points. We're all losing sleep over the same things. My team is driving me crazy. I don't know what to do. So that, to me, really, the combination of those three things really, I think, created a powerful program. And so, my attention span is about 7 years. As I have become accustomed to my, paying attention to my own uninterrupted patterns in life and my career choices. And I'm trying to think, at the beginning of actually, it started with the pandemic. And this is a very long-winded explanation. I said I was going to be brief, but I'm not.
Usually usually when somebody says this will be brief, it's not.
It's not. Well, yeah, I should have prefaced everything by saying I don't speak in sound bites.
Yeah, not to elaborate, but
yeah, I usually go, okay, long story long.
Yeah, long story longer. Yeah, and I'm getting to leadership growth formula because I'll tell you, the reason I felt like I wanted to share that backstory is because I stepped into full-time coaching during the year of the pandemic. So 2020. That's all I did, because obviously advanced leadership was off the table. We couldn't do anything in person that year, right? That was on hiatus. And Terry Norvell was experiencing something similar. And so I spent that entire year immersed in the leadership challenges and struggles, the very real leadership challenges that these folks were facing. And
was that consultative? Did you charge per hour for coaching?
This was the PDS.
This is still PDS coaching. Okay.
Still PDS coaching. Yeah, still PDS. And what I realized after that, pretty much that full year, from the conference in February beyond to the end of the year, that rather than feeling hopeless or helpless, that there was actually something that I could do to provide support, resources, tools in a cutting edge way that is not steeped in the sort of the heaviness of the pandemic and what we're all suffering and going through, but the possibility of creating a different type of world through leadership, just being a better leader. And so I got the itch, right? I got the universal signal, and
universal
I needed the bandwidth to do that. What's that?
You got the universal cookie.
I did. The universal cookie just landed right in my lap. And I thought, I've got to sharpen the saw, which, I don't know if you're familiar with the good old Stephen Covey, the 7 habits.
Yep.
Right? 7 habits. And so one of them, of course, is sharpening the saw. And as a lifelong learner, I thought, I've got to have, number one, the bandwidth. And number two, I've got to get into the research and understand what's happening right now for leaders. The landscape has changed. There's a crisis in competence around leadership. We are all leaders, if nothing else, in our own lives.
Yep.
And so to come at this from a holistic approach, sort of that 360, everywhere you go, there you are. And so I
have to think about that one. My mind's in a loop on that one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, everywhere you go, there you
are. Yeah.
Yeah, you show up, right? Because so many people want to say I'm going to be this way at home, and then I'm going to be this way at work, and I'm going to, play a role. I'm going to wear this hat and that hat. And the truth is that, gosh, that's exhausting. Woo, how about we just show up, right? Just do you. Wouldn't that be great? And if you had the inner confidence, the inner trust that you would always show up the way you need to, wow, what a different brand of leadership that might be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really took 2021. So that's when I left. I left PDS at the end of January and really immersed myself in a lot of work. And because I was then able to have the bandwidth, wasn't traveling, and I was able to really get into that creative content development mode. And, I get a bit crazy. In fact, you wouldn't have been able to see the peacock. I had my entire office was plastered with flip chart paper, and my husband stuck his head in the door and he goes, "Oh, this is where you're making the sausage." Like, it looked a bit Jackson Pollock-ish, it was kind of crazy. But from that work, and because I am a collaborator, I mean, I'm a people person, right? I mean,
Yep.
I just,
That's for sure.
love is my number one value, my number one strength, and I believe that that's part of my superpower is that connection, right? And so I'm a collaborator at heart. I don't like to do anything in a vacuum. So because I wasn't going to be doing advanced leadership with Terry Norvell anymore, she and I were lamenting the fact that we weren't playing together. And I said, well, there's got to be a way for us. There's this new material available now for leaders that I think is cutting edge, and we've got to find a way to get it out there into the world. And I've got to plug. This is the origin story of Leadership Growth Formula. You guys know Chris Cornelison.
Yep.
Yes.
So Chris had wanted to work with Terry and I for a long time. We just wanted to do something together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's such a dynamo.
Right,
and
yeah.
we just, oh my God, just like this mutual fan club, right? We're all just like the president of each other's fan clubs. And so Chris said, hey, I'm going to do a one-day training event for my SolutionsRx customers. Would you and Terry come and do a 2-hour program for my customers?
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, oh, voila, another cookie from the universe. Oh, yes. And we're going to test drive some of this new material that we have, developed and uncovered. And that, believe it or not, when we dove in, we were like, oh no, we've got 2 hours, but we have 2.5 days. And it was like, ruh-roh, we've got so much and more. And so that really was the origin story. And so Terry and I decided that we really would really do whatever it took to get this program out into the world, because the genesis is change. That's where it starts, right? And so we thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could create some type of template or a formula that people could use over and over and over again when they need to make a change, or they need to shift something, or they're not getting what they want, right? They need a different, because we're all getting results, but are they the results that we want? Are they the desired results? And so that's how we landed on creating this actual growth formula, which is it's pretty simple and yet not easy to implement, right? I mean,
How would you say the pandemic has affected management training and management styles?
I would say in every way. And it began, I will say this, I think there was a shift prior to the pandemic.
Okay.
The integration of millennials and Gen Xers and Gen Yers and things, we began to get a sense that things were not going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
That we were going to have to manage people differently. We were going to have to lead people differently. And so I think the pandemic just accelerated it, perhaps, Marsha. It just,
I think I agree with that statement.
It ignited what was already perhaps forming. And, the other piece of this too is deciding for yourself what kind of leader you want to be in your life, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's personal or professional. So we looked, so I think it impacted how people show up as leaders. And now we have to look at the management and leadership development programs that existed before the pandemic, to what degree are they even relevant anymore?
Mm-hmm. Do you do anything in your class that addresses remote leadership?
We don't specifically address that, and yet it's this huge issue. And, and there are so many different philosophies and schools of thought. And, Jeff, it's interesting that you should ask that question, because my husband happens to work for Walker Dunlop, which is a Denver-based financial services company. And, they're all over the country. And yet the president, the founder, the CEO, Willie Walker, he just has a bias, and he believes that it's better to be in the office, right? Like there's an energy and there's a dynamic that exists when people are together that you can replicate to a point via Zoom. But it's like why Terry and I decided that this needed to be an in-person program.
Yep.
Right? Because remotely,
yeah, I agree 100%.
You cannot, and keep in mind, Brene Brown, who is one of my favorites. In fact, we lean into her work a lot as a resource for leadership growth formula. And Brene Brown, I'm sure as a Texan, you probably are familiar with Brene.
I'm not.
I've heard the name, but I'm not.
So yes, she actually has the 4th most watched TED Talk of all time.
Okay.
And she's a Texan. She's a 5th generation Texan. She is a researcher, author. She's just blowing up the business world these days with her latest book is called Atlas of the Heart. She does 2 different podcasts.
Wow.
But that 2009 TED Talk really launched her career. She'd already been an author of several books because she's a researcher and professor at the University of Texas. And so she, in one of her books, Dare to Lead, she talks about we as human beings are hardwired for connection. We are truly hardwired for connection. And so, Jeff, to your point, it makes it difficult, I got sidetracked with my little sidebar promo for Brene Brown. But it does speak to the need for some people, right, to be in that collaborative environment. And so how we address that, because we don't necessarily specifically talk about how do you manage a remote worker, is if you are showing up, right, as the leader you want to be, and you trust and you are confident in your leadership capabilities, then you manage that scenario, right? You manage the person, perhaps not the process. You manage what that person is going through. You're paying attention to them. And in the case of a remote worker, it's a lot of assessing. Is that person, because there are studies out there and research that shows that some people are actually more productive in a home office. I don't think remote is a productive issue. If somebody's unproductive in a home office, they're going to be unproductive. There are more distractions. They're unproductive at home. They're unproductive in the office. You could say, though, there's a portion of a person's time that needs to be unproductive, right? They need to decompress. And then I need to do this. In the office, you decompress building a relationship with other people that you work with. And sometimes that relationship creates innovation because the things you talk about are work related and you get a boom and you're decompressing in a worthwhile way, right? Over here, you're decompressing with a load of laundry or with making a snack or something like that. Taking the dog for a walk.
And so you can say, well, what we consider hardcore productive, lines of code, something like that's the same. But the non-productive time is productive in a different type of way.
It is.
Leadership there, and when I hit that, it wasn't just talking about remote workers, which is a piece. But, we've always had different branches of companies. Now we have tools that we can have leadership roles with people at other, you'll now have deal where you might have somebody in another office who's supervising people at your office because the tools are better, which you might not have done in the past. You've got relationships that you have with customers or with vendors. And now those relationships aren't phone-based because you have more tools now. They're more video-based. There probably are opportunities to use some tools, some persuasion, some leadership that wouldn't have been available or even an option before.
Right. No, you hit the nail on the head. Go ahead, Marsha. Mm-hmm.
So I guess one of the things I'm really curious about, and I'm going to sidetrack it and change topic a little bit mildly here. You've mentioned so many names. Who would you contribute to or say are your top 5 influencers?
5's too many. Give us 3. Top 3.
Top 3.
Top 3. Yeah, I would say Marcus Buckingham.
Okay.
Brene Brown.
The Texan.
The Texan, yes. And boy.
If you need to go 5, go 5.
No, Jeff's cutting me off. Caroline Mace, who I consider to be my spiritual guru. She is
okay.
She and Father Richard Rohr. So I'm gonna go tie for myself.
You get a little tie
for
there.
Top 3.
Yeah, a little tie there. Father Richard Rohr, and Caroline Mace. But from a business standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, right now, I would say Marcus Buckingham and Brene Brown.
And that's who. What would be your current favorite book? Professional, not.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Quotes.
I don't know.
What's that? What's that, Marsha?
She said, "Why the air quotes?" It's not something that I normally do. I don't know.
Well, because I'm doing it.
Are you doing air quotes?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a total parent. I imitate.
Our mirror neurons. Our mirror. Yeah. That's the neuroscience piece kicking in, right? Our mirror neurons. If somebody's doing if I nod, you'll start nodding.
No, it's crazy. I am in
smile. Somebody else is smiling.
And my opinion of why we do that is to belong. Right? So you see like a mockingbird, what do? Well, they pick up the songs of other birds, not because, hey, that's a cool song, but so the birds will say, oh yeah, that bird's one of our group. We'll let them hang out.
Absolutely.
And so I find myself all the time imitating habits and you'd be around somebody, you start imitating their accent.
Absolutely. That's mirroring, and it's a neurological thing. We can't help it. We can't get away from it. That's how our brains work, right? Mm-hmm. It's why understanding why that fight or flight response is so important for a leader, because that little almond-shaped part of the brain that controls fight or flight is called the amygdala. And when it gets triggered, we go into a hijack mode because, and the pharmacists love this because they know this. They're like, oh, you're flooded with cortisol and adrenaline and, So they know all the chemicals, right? The chemical cocktail that gets, that gets dispensed in your body. And yet when you're talking about the belonging part of it, Jeff, so what that neurological chemical cocktail is the positive stuff, right? The dopamine and the oxytocin and the serotonin and all those feel good chemicals, and dopamine actually contributes to high performance. So there's a lot to be said for that. And I think I just got us off track again because Marsha, you
no, that's good. We don't have to be on track, off track.
We're always off track, off the wall, all over the place.
Well,
so
she's
we'll link it back.
She should have been a CIA operative or something. She's super observant of everything.
Yes.
Yeah, just
that's
every
right.
little
She
detail.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's an anchor and sometimes it's a sail. It's just a bent.
I love it.
So I guess back to Jeff's question, your favorite book.
Okay.
Oh, yes, my favorite book. Yeah, that's right. So I will say this, Marcus Buckingham.
Of today. It doesn't have to be all time. Like your favorite, like your right now book.
No, today, right now. Yeah. Absolutely.
The one you're quoting when you're
the one I'm quoting from that I also quote most often from is actually Marcus Buckingham's book from 2019, which is The 9 Lies About Work. And that for me was I would put that in my top 5 business books of all time. He's actually released another one just back in April since then called Love and Work. It's equally, it's equally as good. I just don't think it's as Good.
Note to self: next time we have a podcast with Kelley, I'm bringing a pad to write and take notes
I'm gonna have to
oh, somebody's writing these down for me. I guess I can
I'm
play them
sitting
back.
here. I'm thinking, Madison, are you writing these down? While
That's what
I know I can count
know.
on Madison. She said she got them.
she's got.
Oh my gosh. I know that you either love that about me or you just are like, oh, please, sister, dial that back. I just don't tell me one more book.
No, I'm like,
Yeah, I don't know if I want to hang out with that person who's saying, "Guys,
we only have 15 minutes left," and I'm like, tell me more.
I was like, okay.
I'm like, I want.
Well,
her
she
to
wants
come
us to come hang
connect.
out with her, so you know.
Yeah, and
come out and hang out with her.
I want her to come to connect, and
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
know. So
we're
we
like
have to have
all
her
we're
booked
all
this year,
so
but
booked
next
up
year we
this
should
year
have
and
her for
sold
sure.
out. It's our largest connect yet,
I love it.
if ever. I mean, our last one in 2019 was 450 plus on the attendees, and this year we have 910.
I love it.
And-
Wow.
Yeah, we're growing and blowing.
That's
And
awesome.
And so, yeah, I definitely want to nail you down for Connect next year
Well, thank you.
and get you
I
on my
would be
speaker
honored and
list.
delighted. And, I love the fact that you call it Connect because that's so important.
well, actually, this year
well-
it's Reconnect.
Is it I know. Oh my gosh.
Because it's been 2 years since
Yeah.
we've had a
Right?
Connect.
We're
Oh my
reconnecting.
gosh, it's gonna feel so great to be back together again. I know.
Mhm.
So, how many of these have you taught?
So we have, this is our launch year, and we're delighted that we decided we were going to do a bit of a hybrid business model because this is not just, look, Terry and I both have been hanging out with independent pharmacy for the last decade or so, and we love these people. And yet, our mission was to get these tools and resources out there into the world so that everyone could be a better leader. And so we have our hybrid model is we thought, okay, look, we know we can customize this and come actually to you, right? We can bring it to you. If you've got a team of 20 people or more, then we can bring this to you. So we did that with another Pioneer, part of the Pioneer family is Amina Abu Bakr.
Huh?
Yep.
Yep. So we piloted it with Amina's team back in February, and
But that was fun.
22 folks, 2 learnings, 2 key takeaways from that pilot, that this program has a broad appeal. So, there were multiple roles within the business that were there. There were clinic folks, there were practitioners. So, 2 physicians, HR people, ops people, receptionists, technicians, owners. And then we actually just did another customized on-site version in Richmond, Virginia. Again, Catherine Carey's PioneerRx pharmacy team.
Okay.
And again, broad appeal. That was the first thing that we realized, like, wow, this isn't just for the C-suite, right? Like,
Right.
this has a broad appeal. The most important takeaway, and this is where I'm just giddy. I'm like, to me, this is where the rubber meets the road is what are you going to do with it, right? That application piece I talked about earlier. So what we're finding in the follow-up coaching is that people are applying it with even more impact and even more traction than what we were finding with advanced leadership, which is just beyond thrilling for us. That's the whole point, is that we want you to get the desired result. Like, what do you want in life? Personally, professionally, let's go get it, right? And so, that being able to actually apply the formula, to me, that's the report card, right? So next week, we're actually doing our first public session. We've probably got 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different industries represented in Denver. And next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we've got multifamily housing.
Yeah.
We have property management. We do have pharmacy. We've got pharmacy folks coming, home builders, medical. I'm trying to think. We've got a couple of physicians coming. So it's going to be a really great group of people. So entrepreneurs, some that are just entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So ponder with me for a second. All right. So I look. It sounds like something. I love you, and it sounds like something. And I look at the October. Hey, this is something interesting. That I might want to do. But you got your buckets. I think it would be interesting to be in a group of single industry, the pharmacy group, to go to that. Right. I think it'd be super interesting to have a group of 22 PioneerRx people and do it. And I also think it'd be super interesting to send a couple of people at a time to the public ones and be exposed to people from other industries and kind of the insight that they might provide. You know, all too often we're living in our own village and not realizing there's something else over the other hill that they're doing something differently and have a different perspective. So what would so if you have those three buckets, what do you think would be the most beneficial?
I think all three. I mean, quite frankly, if hey, we can take this offline. I mean, look, we would love to come and do this for, 22, 25 folks at PioneerRx. What I will say is that the team, and this is why you have to weigh the pros and cons. And I think the answer to that question, let me give you the bottom line. The answer to that question is, what do you want out of it, right? What is your objective? Like, what do you want the outcome to be and what is most important to you? Because really that homogeneous group, like the PioneerRx team, you're going to experience this elevated sense of connection and teamwork beyond, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, they're like, whoa, they talk about a deep knowing of your teammate. It's incredible. And yet I've got a couple of folks coming next week for that very reason, that they want to open the blinders, right? They just feel like they just need to sort of broaden the horizon, get out of their own industry, get out of their own way, hear from other fresh voices in different types of, professional environments. And so I really think that and we also have folks that are attending, because we're actually doing a session for PDS members in August. And so we've got, the onsite that we just did, there were 3 people who couldn't make it because of conflicts. Well, they're going to go to the one in August, right? They're going to be, they're going to they're going to attend another session. So the good news is that there's something for everyone. And we honestly did not anticipate being this busy. And it's thrilling because, at the end of the day, Marcus Buckingham says there's only one true definition of a leader. Only one. And that is a person who has followers. So what kind of leader do you want to be? And if we can provide the framework for you to sort of intrinsically understand what internal shift needs to occur, and then we can marry that up with some external behavior and action, the desired result's pretty much guaranteed.
So you mentioned Chris and Amina. Have you worked with Travis Wolf? Because I think he's teaching a class at Connect that is around, not just keeping employees, but keeping them. I think it's around, I forget what the title, but it was basically around that, getting good people and keeping them.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Retention and
critical.
happiness.
Yeah, and I don't know what...
I love Travis, by the way.
Yeah.
I love Travis and Sunny.
And that would be an interesting thing to try to figure out. I think the value of doing it as a company might outweigh, because you're keeping those relationships.
Yeah.
But you could see, like, being in a group of, pharmacists are independent pharmacists, good people. That would be super interesting.
Well, and what we know, because here's the thing, team engagement, right? Retention, you just mentioned that. If we do not pay attention to our people, the team engagement isn't going to be there. I mean, there's some pretty startling statistics. I mean, only like 38% of employees, and this is according to Gallup organization, a survey that they do, only 30-something% of the American workforce is actively engaged in their work, right? So that, and the question also that employees are asking now, because look, I have optometry clients, and I have, we're actually going to do a continuing education for the optometric management symposium in Orlando in November. And they're facing the exact same issues that independent pharmacy and most other businesses, in particular healthcare service industries, are facing, and that is hiring, right? Like getting these people on board. And then we know everybody's talked about the Great Resignation. Oh, they're my air quotes again, Marsha. The Great Resignation. But it's being driven by something, and it's being driven by what's now known as the Great Reassessment. I mean, people are just reassessing what's important to me, and that all the way back to your original question, Marsha, as to what degree has the pandemic impacted this? people are like, you know what? No, look, this is life and death we're talking about here. I am now going to be very selective with how I spend my time and where I spend it and who I spend it with. And so the question then becomes is what as a business owner or entrepreneur or leader, what are you doing to deserve good employees, to deserve those high performers, and how are you going to keep them? So I'm sure Travis will be addressing that in his incredibly talented way for sure, because that's going to be the name of the game moving forward.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting. I think there's going to be some awakenings. One of those things one of the best we really had a model of hiring people out of school and training them and bringing them up.
Yeah. Awesome.
I feel like I'm a teacher, educator. There's some good and some bad things about that because there's a lot of things to teach somebody, and you end up promoting people who are technically good but not have management or leadership skills, and those things you need to train. But one of the things that this one guy said after being here about 6 months is, I don't know how to work. I don't know what work means. I don't know. Am I supposed to be glued at my desk for 8 hours and not look away? What is work? People are coming out of school and they don't really know the nature of what it means to work. And you got the other extremes that think, well, this just is the next person who's paid to take care of me, right? This is like my college, they're paying, where is my social agenda and where is other kind of stuff? And there is some training about people, especially this a younger generation, about what work means. That starts off with, you do some work and I pay you for the work. That's the beginning.
Exactly.
And
that's just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Right.
And then the bonus comes, as Zig Ziglar was always, I'm going to give everything everybody expects from me and then some, and it's then some that helps you get ahead. And a lot of people think it's that the do what I expected and I get ahead.
Right.
And that's just the beginning, but they don't know that. They don't know, there's no understanding, so.
Yeah, there's no point of reference for that.
Right.
And I will say this too, that the new way of coaching folks is really based more on paying attention to them than any type of old school formalized evaluation system, right? Because if you think about that fight or flight response, just the words appraisal, evaluation, review, they trigger that fight or flight response. And so paying attention is the work of leading. Being able to not necessarily, sit down and provide these formalized feedback sessions, but in real time, because that to your point, Jeff, that's how they're going to learn. Oh, that's what work means.
Yeah, we threw away
the performance expectation.
We don't do annual performance. We threw it away after my first. I was like, you didn't sit down with your spouse for your 39th and say, okay, so let me look here. Let's look at our last year together.
How have I done this last year? Let's talk about the last quarter.
On such and such a time. I remember
what are the things we would change at this point?
I had a boss early in my career that pulled out the file, which really was the file to convince me why I didn't deserve much of a raise file, right? And well, back in January, you did blank, and then here there were dates and times of infections, and here's some things you're good at and can grow at, and I remember next year, the first thing he asked is, do you have any expectations about our session today? And I was like, well, if you're doing your job, I would expect not to hear anything I haven't heard already. And that's and so we don't do it. And if the manager has the right relationship, which you said attention, there's nothing new. You're handling and what that means. If there's a problem, handle it then. You don't hide it or stay away from it.
Or like hold it into a file.
Here's this thing you did, and let's not do it again.
And Jeff, this is like a hot button for me because so many organizations, there is no system or process today for focusing people on near-term work, right? Like in the moment. Marcus Buckingham says, look, that is the work of leading. If you have to sit down and write down what you did 6 weeks ago,
right,
then, and it's always in the past, right? And I have known that in my gut for 35 years, every time those flippin' performance evaluation periods rolled around, and I would be like, oh, poke my eyeball out.
Right. Why do I want to do this?
For that very reason. Don't, everything you say to me, I should already know. There should be no surprises. And so it's like, you know what? Being able to check in with them on a regular basis, like weekly, even just 5 minutes, right? Know me, focus me, care about me, get those obstacles out of the way and then tell me, elevate my performance, right? Hold up a mirror and show me what I need to be doing differently. That's coaching. And that is the work of leading. It really is. And so to me, I get so passionate about that because I had so many horror stories similar to yours, Jeff, where I'd be like, oh my gosh, really? That's the detail you're going to pull out of my file from 9 months ago that has no bearing on who I am today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or really a reflection on, people make mistakes. The piece is the, hey, what's the plan for not doing this again? What did we learn from it? And hey, I can help you if you want to, but that's the.
Well,
but like you said, the biggest thing is don't hold on to who they were yesterday.
Yeah.
Focus on who they are today.
Absolutely, Marsha. And, you guys are really progressive because there are so many organizations that think about the time, the effort, and the energy that diminishes the ability to innovate, accelerate, to be agile in the marketplace because they're so busy wrapped up with these formal evaluations and review process and that you get so bogged down in that. And that's just an old school way of thinking. So you guys are ahead of the curve. Congratulations.
Yeah, I think the world is transforming. And I think I agree with you, accelerated by the pandemic and by highest inflation in 30 years and just, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And those who get ahead of it are going to do really well. And those people stuck in and not being able to get ahead of it and figure out. And I don't think where it is where it's going to get to, and so figuring out where it's going to get to and trying to get there first is going to set companies up for competitive advantage because in the end, advantage is people. You're people and intellectual, and that's your.
That's it. And it's the only competitive advantage that's completely within your control.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it.
Cool. Any last things to say?
Any last words of wisdom
to the world? You have so much wisdom.
Oh my gosh.
What little piece are you going to leave our listeners with today?
Oh, that's such a great question. I know. At the end of the day, what the world needs is people who are authentic, genuine, kind, caring, and loving. We like to say it's a kindness trifecta, right? Because it's good for you, it's good for the business, and it's good for humanity.
Nice. What the world needs now.
All
right. Well, it was great. I enjoyed it. I hope we get a chance to. I definitely would love to have you speak next year, and I hope we get a chance to do something together. Let's take it offline and discuss it more. And
absolutely.
Yeah,
and love to just keep us in touch with your success and all the cool things you're doing. And thank you for what you do.
Oh, Jeff and Marsha, it has been a delight and a pleasure. I just have the utmost regard for the two of you. I'm in admiration and respect for what you're doing with the industry and with this podcast in particular. And it was so much fun to play with you two today.
Yes,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kelley.
Right.
Bye. Thank you for watching the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more pharmacy professionals like you.